Vin Diesel was no ordinary man. To the world, he was a towering figure in Hollywood, a superstar known for his muscular build, deep voice, and iconic roles in action-packed movies like Fast and Furious and XX. His name lit up marquees across the globe, and millions of fans adored him. But behind the glitz and glamour of fame, Vin's life wasn't as picture-perfect as it seemed. For one thing, Vin was a single father. After a painful breakup with Mia's mother, he found himself juggling two worlds: the demanding life of an actor and the responsibilities of raising his young daughter, Mia. It was tough, really tough. On most days, Vin would leave home before sunrise to head to set, only returning late at night when Mia was already asleep. He loved her more than anything, but the long hours and constant travel made it hard for him to be the hands-on dad he wanted to be. That's where Elena came in. Vin had hired her as a nanny shortly after his schedule became overwhelming. She was a warm, kind-hearted woman from Brazil who radiated positivity wherever she went. What stood out about Elena wasn't just her patience or her ability to connect with children. It was her passion for life. Even though she worked as a nanny, her real dream was to become a professional dancer. Back in Brazil, she had been part of a prestigious dance troupe, performing samba and other traditional styles on stage. But dreams don't always come true, easily, and Elena had left her old life behind to start fresh in Los Angeles. From the moment Elena stepped into their home, things began to change. She didn't just take care of Mia, she brought a sense of calm and joy that Vin hadn't realized they were missing. For Mia, Elena quickly became more than just a caregiver. She was a friend, a mentor, and someone who made every day feel special. Elena introduced Mia to Brazilian culture, teaching her simple words in Portuguese and playing lively music that filled the house with energy. One of the first things Vin noticed about Elena was how effortlessly she connected with Mia. They laughed, together, played games, and spent hours drawing pictures or building blanket forts in the living room. One evening, as Vin returned home from a grueling day on set, he walked into the house expecting silence. Instead, he heard giggles coming from the living room. Curious, he followed the sound and stopped dead in his tracks when he saw what was happening. Elena and Mia were dancing. It wasn't choreographed or polished. It was pure, unfiltered fun. Elena held Mia's tiny hands, guiding her through spins and twirls while upbeat Brazilian music blared from the stereo. Mia's face was alight with excitement, her laughter ringing out like bells. Vin stood frozen in the doorway, watching them move together with such ease and happiness. He couldn't remember the last time he'd seen his daughter look so carefree. At that moment, something shifted inside Vin. Sure, he knew Elena was good with kids, that's why he hired her. But seeing her interact with Mia like this was different. There was a warmth between them, a connection that went beyond babysitter and child. And as much as Vin hated to admit it, there was another feeling bubbling beneath the surface: curiosity. Who exactly was this woman who could make his little girl laugh so freely? What was her story? As the weeks passed, Vin started paying closer attention to Elena. He noticed the way she spoke gently to Mia, never raising her voice even during tantrums. He admired how she encouraged Mia to try new things, whether it was tasting unfamiliar foods or attempting to count in Portuguese. Most of all, he appreciated the stability she brought to their chaotic lives. With Elena around, Vin felt less guilty about being away so often. He trusted her completely, knowing Mia was in good hands. But trust wasn't the only emotion growing within him. Whenever Elena smiled at him or thanked him for giving her the job, Vin felt a strange flutter in his chest. At first, he dismissed it as gratitude. After all, she was helping him raise his daughter. But the more time he spent around her, the harder it became to ignore those feelings. Despite his growing admiration for Elena, Vin kept his distance. He reminded himself constantly that she worked for him, that crossing that line would complicate things unnecessarily. Yet, fate has a funny way of intervening when you least expect it. Little did Vin know that one seemingly ordinary night would alter the course of his life forever. And it all started with a dance. As the days turned into weeks, Elena became an inseparable part of the household. She wasn't just a nanny anymore. She was a presence that brought warmth and life to every corner of Vin's home. Her connection with Mia grew stronger each day, and it wasn't hard to see why. Elena had a way of making even the simplest moments feel magical. Whether it was turning bath time into a game or teaching Mia how to clap along to the rhythm of her favorite songs, she transformed their routine into something special. One of the things Elena loved most about her job was sharing pieces of her Brazilian heritage with Mia. Every morning, she'd play soft samba music in the background while they ate breakfast. At first, Mia would tilt her head curiously, listening to the unfamiliar beats. But soon she began recognizing the tunes and even started humming along. Elena taught her simple Portuguese phrases like bom dia, good morning, and eu te amo, I love you, which Mia proudly repeated to her dad whenever he came home. Papa, bom dia? Mia would shout excitedly as Vin walked through the door, her little arms stretched out for a hug. Vin couldn't help but chuckle at her enthusiasm. It was heartwarming to see his daughter embracing another culture so eagerly, thanks to Elena's gentle guidance. Elena also introduced Mia to dancing. At first it was just playful movements, spinning around the living room or hopping from one foot to the other. But over time, Elena began teaching her basic steps, showing her how to sway her hips and move her feet in time with the music. For Mia, these lessons weren't work, they were pure joy. She adored watching Elena glide across the floor with grace and confidence, and she tried her best to mimic her moves. What fascinated Vin the most was how natural their bond felt. There was no forced effort, no awkwardness between them. Elena treated Mia not just as a child she cared for, but as a friend. They laughed together, shared secrets, and created little rituals that only the two of them understood. Sometimes Vin would overhear snippets of their conversations and smile to himself. Once, he caught Elena telling Mia a story about Carnival in Rio de Janeiro, describing the vibrant costumes, the pulsating music, and the sea of people dancing in the streets. Mia listened wide-eyed, completely captivated. She makes everything sound so fun, Vin thought to himself. And it was true. Elena had a gift for storytelling, painting vivid pictures with her words. Even mundane tasks like tidying up toys became adventures when Elena was involved. Let's race to see who can pick up the blocks faster, she'd say, turning cleanup into a game. Mia giggled uncontrollably, racing around the room to beat her. But it wasn't just Mia who noticed Elena's charm. Vin found himself drawn to her too, though he tried not to let it show. He admired her patience, especially on days when Mia was cranky or refused to nap. Instead of getting frustrated, Elena remained calm, offering gentle reassurance until Mia settled down. Vin marveled at her ability to stay composed under pressure, a trait he wished he possessed more often. Their interactions were subtle but meaningful. When Vin arrived home late at night, Elena would always greet him with a warm smile and a brief update on Mia's day. She ate all her vegetables tonight, she might say, or we painted pictures this afternoon. These small exchanges gave Vin a sense of peace, knowing that Mia was thriving under Elena's care. Over time, their conversations grew longer. They'd talk about everything from Mia's progress to Elena's own dreams and aspirations. Elena rarely spoke about herself unless prompted, but when she did, Vin hung on to her every word. He learned that she had left Brazil not because she wanted to escape her past, but because she hoped to build a brighter future. Dancing had been her life back home, but financial struggles forced her to put her dreams on hold. Moving to Los Angeles was a leap of faith, a chance to start over and perhaps find opportunities she couldn't access in Rio. I miss performing sometimes, Elena confessed one evening as she sat on the couch folding laundry. Her voice was soft, tinged with nostalgia. But I also know that life doesn't stop for anyone. You have to keep moving forward, even if it's hard. Her words struck a chord with Vin. He knew exactly what she meant. Before he became a household name, he'd faced countless rejections and setbacks. There were times when he doubted himself, wondering if he'd ever make it in the cutthroat world of entertainment. Yet here he was now, living proof that persistence could pay off. You're amazing with Mia, Vin said after a pause, his tone sincere. I don't think I've ever seen her this happy. Elena looked up, surprised by the compliment. A faint blush crept onto her cheeks. Thank you, Vin. That means a lot. She's such a sweet girl. It's easy to love spending time with her. The conversation ended there, but the memory lingered in Vin's mind long after Elena went to bed. He realized how much she had changed their lives in such a short amount of time. Before she came along, the house had felt empty and quiet, almost suffocating. Now it buzzed with energy and laughter. Elena had brought light into their world, and Vin couldn't imagine going back to the way things were before. Still, there was a part of him that hesitated. He couldn't shake the feeling that his growing admiration for Elena was crossing a line. She worked for him after all. Was it wrong to feel this way? To notice the way her eyes sparkled when she smiled, or the way her laughter seemed to fill the entire room? Vin wrestled with these thoughts, unsure of what to do next. Despite his inner turmoil, one thing was certain. Elena had become an irreplaceable part of their family. The bond she shared with Mia was undeniable, and the impact she had on their lives was profound. Little did Vin know that their connection was about to deepen even further, setting the stage for a moment that would change everything forever. As the weeks turned into months, Vin found himself increasingly intrigued by Elena. She wasn't just a caretaker or someone who kept Mia entertained. She was a person with depth, dreams, and a story that fascinated him. He wanted to know more about her, not out of obligation, but because he genuinely cared. It was during one quiet afternoon while Mia napped upstairs that Vin finally mustered the courage to ask. The house was peaceful, save for the soft hum of the wind chimes outside. Vin sat at the kitchen table sipping coffee as Elena prepared lunch. She moved gracefully around the kitchen, chopping vegetables with practiced ease. For a moment, Vin simply watched her, marveling at how effortlessly she seemed to fit into their lives. Then, clearing his throat, he broke the silence. "Elena," he began, his voice steady but warm. "Can I ask you something?" She turned, to face him, her hand still holding the knife mid-chop. A small smile played on her lips. "Of course, Vin, what's on your mind?" He hesitated for a second, unsure of where to start. "I've been wondering about your past. You mentioned once that you used to dance professionally in Brazil. What was that like?" Elena paused, setting the knife down on the counter. Her expression softened as memories flooded back. "It was incredible," she said after a moment, her eyes distant. "Dancing has always been my passion. In Rio, I was part of a troupe that performed at festivals, weddings, and even on television. We'd rehearse for hours every day, perfecting our routines. The energy during performances, it's indescribable. When you're on stage, surrounded by music and movement, it feels like nothing else matters." Vin listened intently, captivated by the way her face lit up as she spoke. He could almost picture her twirling under bright lights, her feet moving in perfect sync with the rhythm. "That sounds amazing," he said sincerely. "Why did you leave all of that behind?" Elena sighed, her smile fading slightly. "Life happens, doesn't it? My family needed help financially, and I had to make some tough decisions. I couldn't afford to keep dancing full-time anymore. So I took jobs teaching classes and babysitting to support them. Eventually, I realized I wanted to try something new, to see if I could make it as a dancer somewhere else. That's why I came here to LA. Her honesty caught Vin off guard. He hadn't expected her to open up so freely, yet there was no trace of bitterness in her voice, only determination. "You must miss it," he said softly. "Performing, I mean." "I do," Elena admitted, leaning against the counter. "But sometimes you have to choose between following your dreams and surviving. I don't regret coming here, though. Who knows? Maybe this is where my next chapter begins." Her words struck a chord deep within Vin. He knew exactly what it felt like to chase a dream while facing countless obstacles. Before he became a Hollywood star, he'd worked odd jobs, auditioned tirelessly, and faced rejection after rejection. There were nights when he doubted himself, wondering if he'd ever catch a break. Yet here he was now, living proof that perseverance, could lead to success. You remind me of myself, Vin said suddenly, surprising even himself. When I first started acting, I didn't know if I'd make it either. But look at you. You've got this fire inside you. Don't let anyone take that away from you. Elena blinked, clearly touched by his words. Thank you, Vin. That means a lot coming from you. Most people don't understand what it's like to put everything on hold for the sake of others. They think you should just focus on yourself, but sometimes sacrifice is necessary. Their conversation continued long, after lunch was prepared. They talked about their struggles, their hopes, and the sacrifices they'd made along the way. For the first time, Vin felt like he was seeing Elena for who she truly was. Not just as Mia's nanny, but as a woman with dreams, fears, and a heart full of resilience. And Elena, in turn, saw Vin differently too. Beneath the tough exterior of a global superstar was a man who understood hardship and valued authenticity. As the days passed, their bond grew stronger. Vin made an effort to spend more time at home, eager to be part of the moments Elena shared with Mia. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting golden hues across the living room, Elena decided to teach Mia a new dance step. She knelt on the floor, guiding the little girl's feet with gentle hands. Now kick your right foot forward and clap, Elena instructed, demonstrating the move herself. Mia giggled, attempting to copy her. Though her movements were clumsy, the sheer joy on her face was infectious. Vin stood nearby, watching silently. He couldn't help but chuckle at Mia's antics, but his gaze kept drifting back to Elena. There was something mesmerizing about the way she moved, fluid, confident, and completely in tune with the music. Without thinking, he stepped closer. If I join? He asked, his tone playful. Elena looked up, surprised but amused. Sure, why not? Let's see those moves, Vin Diesel. Mia clapped excitedly as Vin joined them, mimicking Elena's instructions. At first he felt awkward, unsure of his footing, but Elena encouraged him, laughing as she corrected his posture. Relax your shoulders. Feel the rhythm. For a few minutes, the three of them danced together, filling the room with laughter and music. It was a rare moment of pure happiness, one that Vin wished could last forever. As they slowed down, breathless and smiling, Vin caught Elena's eye. For a brief second, time seemed to stand still. There was an unspoken understanding between them, a connection that went beyond employer and employee. Later that night, as Elena tucked Mia into bed, Vin lingered in the hallway, gathering his thoughts. He knew he was walking a fine line, balancing admiration with professionalism. Yet he couldn't deny the feelings stirring within him. Elena wasn't just someone who worked for him. She was someone who inspired him, challenged him, and brought light into his life. The revelation unsettled him. Could he really allow himself to feel this way about her? Was it fair to Elena or to Mia? These questions swirled in his mind as he retreated to his room, unable to shake the image of her smiling face from his thoughts. Little did Vin know, fate had other plans. The bond they were building would soon be tested, forcing both of them to confront their emotions and decide what truly mattered most. As the days rolled on, Vin found himself in a constant tug-of-war with his emotions. On one hand, he was grateful for Elena's presence in their lives. She had brought so much joy and stability to Mia, and indirectly to him as well. On the other hand, the growing feelings he harbored for her weighed heavily on his conscience. He knew it wasn't just admiration or friendship anymore. There was something deeper stirring inside him, something he couldn't quite ignore. Vin tried to rationalize his emotions. She works for me, he reminded himself repeatedly. This is wrong, it's unprofessional. But no matter how many times he repeated those words in his head, they didn't erase the warmth he felt whenever Elena smiled at him, or the way his heart skipped a beat when she laughed. He began questioning everything. Was it okay to care about someone who worked for him? Could their relationship ever evolve into something more without jeopardizing what they already had? The guilt gnawed at him constantly. Vin prided himself on being a good father, putting Mia's needs above all else. Yet here he was, entertaining thoughts that could potentially disrupt the harmony of their home. What if his feelings complicated things between them? What if Elena didn't feel the same way, or worse, what if she did and it ended badly? The last thing Vin wanted was to create tension or discomfort for Mia. She adored Elena, and losing her would devastate the little girl. To make matters worse, Vin couldn't shake the thought that Elena might not see him as anything more than her employer. After all, their dynamic was clear from the start. He paid her salary, and she took care of Mia. There were boundaries, invisible lines neither of them had dared to cross. But lately those lines felt blurrier than ever. The moments they shared, the late-night conversations, the impromptu dance sessions, the easy laughter, felt less like professional interactions and more like, well, something else entirely. One evening, after tucking Mia into bed, Vin decided to confront his feelings head-on. He walked into the living room where Elena sat reading a book, her legs curled beneath her on the couch. She looked up as he entered, her expression softening into a smile. "Hey," she said warmly. "Everything okay?" "Yeah, everything's fine," Vin replied, though his voice betrayed a hint of nervousness. He hesitated for a moment before sitting down across from her. "Actually, I've been meaning to talk to you." Elena closed her book, placing it gently on the coffee table. "Sure, what's on your mind?" Vin took a deep breath, choosing his words carefully. "I've been thinking a lot lately, about us, about how things have changed since you came into our lives. You've done so much for Mia, and honestly, for me too. I don't think I've ever thanked you enough for that." Elena tilted her head slightly, her brow furrowing in confusion. "You don't need to thank me, Vin. I love spending time with Mia. She's such a sweet girl, and I'm really glad I can help." "I know," Vin said quickly. "But it's more than that. You've become important to us, to me." He paused, searching her face for any sign of discomfort. When she didn't react negatively, he continued. "And I guess what I'm trying to say is, I don't want to mess that up. I don't want to overstep or make things awkward." Elena stared at him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Finally, she spoke, her voice calm but firm. "Vin, I appreciate your honesty, and I understand why you're worried. But let me ask you something. Do you think we're doing anything wrong by caring about each other? By building this bond that feels real?" Her question caught him off guard. Real. That was exactly how it felt. Authentic, genuine, and impossible to dismiss. He shook his head slowly. "No, I don't think we're doing anything wrong. But sometimes, even good things can get complicated." Elena nodded, her gaze thoughtful. "I agree. Life isn't always black and white, but maybe instead of focusing on what could go wrong, we should focus on what's right in front of us. Right now we have a beautiful connection, with Mia, with each other, and I wouldn't trade that for anything." Her words struck a chord deep within Vin. For weeks, he'd been consumed by doubts and fears, imagining all the ways this situation could spiral out of control. But Elena was right. They had something special, something worth protecting. Maybe it was time to stop fighting his feelings and start embracing them. Still, uncertainty lingered. Even if Elena reciprocated his emotions, how could they navigate the complexities of their relationship? Would people judge them? Could they find a balance between their personal lives and their roles as father and nanny? These questions swirled in Vin's mind, leaving him torn between hope and hesitation. The turning point came unexpectedly, during one of Mia's bedtime routines. As Elena tucked her in, reading her favorite storybook aloud, Vin stood in the doorway watching them interact. The sight filled him with an overwhelming sense of gratitude and clarity. He realized that whatever happened next, Mia's happiness would always come first. If Elena truly cared about her, and he believed she did, then their bond would only grow stronger, regardless of the nature of his and Elena's relationship. That night, as Elena finished reading and kissed Mia goodnight, she turned to leave the room only to find Vin still standing there. Their eyes met, and for a brief moment neither of them spoke. Then Vin broke the silence. "Elena," he said softly, "I need to be honest with you. I care about you. A lot. More than I probably should given the circumstances. But I can't keep pretending otherwise. I needed to tell you." Elena's lips parted slightly, surprise flickering across her face. She studied him for a moment, her expression unreadable. Then to Vin's relief she smiled. A small, tentative smile that sent a wave of hope rushing through him. "I care about you too, Vin," she admitted quietly. "More than I expected to. But I won't lie, it scares me. Not because of you, but because of what this could mean for all of us." Vin nodded, understanding completely. "I get it, believe me, I do. All I'm asking is that we take this step together, one day at a time. We'll figure it out, whatever happens." For the first time in weeks, Vin felt a weight lift off his shoulders. They weren't committing to anything drastic. They were simply acknowledging the truth. And while the road ahead promised challenges, he knew one thing for certain. Their connection was real, and it deserved a chance to flourish. Little did they know, their decision to embrace their feelings would soon lead to a moment that changed everything, not just for them, but for Mia as well. Mia's birthday was always a special occasion in the Diesel household. Even with Vin's busy schedule, he made it a point to celebrate her big day with as much enthusiasm as possible. This year, however, things felt different. For one, Elena had taken charge of planning the celebration, infusing it with her own unique touch. She decorated the living room with colorful streamers and balloons, baked a homemade cake shaped like Mia's favorite cartoon character, and even created a playlist of upbeat Brazilian tunes to set the mood. The effort she put into making the day memorable didn't go unnoticed by Vin or by Mia, who couldn't stop squealing with excitement. As the afternoon sun filtered through the windows, friends and family gathered in the house to celebrate. There were games, laughter, and plenty of presents for the birthday girl. But just when everyone thought the festivities were winding down, Elena stepped forward with a mischievous glint in her eye. "Before we cut the cake," she announced, "I have a surprise for Mia, and for all of us." Curious murmurs rippled through the room as Elena dimmed the lights and turned up the music. The lively rhythm of samba filled the air, its infectious beat causing a few guests to tap their feet instinctively. Elena then grabbed Mia's hands, pulling her gently toward the center of the room. "Ready to dance, birthday girl?" Elena asked with a bright smile. Mia giggled, nodding eagerly as Elena began twirling her around. Their movements weren't perfect or choreographed. They were spontaneous and full of joy. Watching them, Vin couldn't help but grin. It was impossible not to be swept up in the moment. Slowly, other guests joined in, clapping along to the beat and cheering on the impromptu performance. But what happened next surprised everyone, including Vin. As Elena guided Mia through another spin, she glanced over at him, extending her free hand in invitation. "Come on, Vin," she called out, her voice ringing above the music. "Don't leave us hanging." For a split second, Vin hesitated. He wasn't much of a dancer, at least not in front of an audience, but something about Elena's playful expression made it hard to resist. Taking a deep breath, he stepped onto the makeshift dance floor, joining the whirlwind of laughter and movement. At first, his steps were awkward, but Elena encouraged him with a laugh, guiding him through simple moves until he found his groove. The three of them danced together, Elena leading with grace, Mia spinning gleefully, and Vin surprising himself with how much fun he was having. The room erupted in applause, and for those few minutes everything else faded away. There was no stress, no worries about fame or responsibilities, just pure, unfiltered happiness. When the song ended, the trio collapsed onto the couch, breathless and laughing. Mia threw her arms around both Vin and Elena, hugging them tightly. "This is the best birthday ever," she declared, her eyes shining with delight. Later that evening, as the guests departed and the house grew quiet, Vin found himself reflecting on the day's events. He helped Elena clean up while Mia played quietly in her room, still riding the high of her celebration. As they worked side by side, packing away leftover snacks and folding chairs. The atmosphere between them shifted. Subtly, the easy camaraderie they'd shared during the party lingered, but now there was an undercurrent of something deeper, a quiet acknowledgement of the connection they'd been tiptoeing around for weeks. "You really know how to throw a party," Vin said, finally breaking the silence. His tone was light, but his gaze lingered on her longer than usual. Elena chuckled softly, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "Well, birthdays are kind of my thing. Back home, we take celebrations very seriously." "I can see that," Vin replied with a smile. "Mia loved every second of it. Honestly, I don't think I've seen her this happy in a long time." "It wasn't just me," Elena countered, meeting his eyes. "You were part of it too. Did you see her face when you started dancing? She looked so proud of you." Vin laughed, shaking his head. "I'm pretty sure proud isn't the word I'd use. Maybe amused fits better." "Either way," Elena said, her voice softening, "you made her day unforgettable. And you made mine too." Her words caught Vin off guard. He stopped what he was doing, turning to face her fully. "What do you mean?" Elena hesitated, as if choosing her next words carefully. "I mean, today reminded me of why I love being here with you and Mia. You two make me feel like I belong, like I'm part of something bigger than myself. And honestly, I haven't felt that way in a long time." Vin stared at her, his chest tightening with emotion. He wanted to tell her how much she meant to him, how grateful he was for everything she'd brought into their lives. But before he could speak, Elena continued. "I know things are complicated between us," she admitted, her voice steady but tinged with vulnerability. "And maybe we're taking a risk by letting ourselves feel this way. But Vin, I don't want to keep pretending that what we have isn't real. Because it is. It's real, and it's beautiful. And I think it's worth fighting for." Her confession hit Vin like a wave, leaving him momentarily speechless. He'd spent so much time worrying about the consequences of their feelings, afraid of ruining what they already had. But hearing Elena say those words aloud, it was like a weight lifting off his shoulders. She wasn't running from their connection. She was embracing it just as he'd hoped she would. "You're right," Vin said finally, his voice thick with emotion. "It is real, and I don't want to fight it anymore either." Elena smiled, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "So, where does that leave us?" Vin reached out, placing a gentle hand on hers. "I don't have all the answers yet, but I know one thing for sure. We'll figure it out together, one step at a time." That night, as they stood in the quiet living room surrounded by remnants of the party, something shifted between them. What had once been uncertainty and hesitation transformed into clarity and hope. They weren't just employer and nanny anymore, or even friends. They were two people who cared deeply for each other, willing to navigate the unknown because of the bond they shared. And as Vin watched Elena tuck Mia into bed later that evening, humming a soft lullaby, he realized something else. This was only the beginning. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them as a team, a family bound not by obligation, but by love.